Are you ready? The
I'm
results have
ready.
been tabulated, formulated. First off, I want to say thank you because we put this out again this year, and we did basically just the same number of people that responded, which is great. Like we are not decreasing in our size. I'm very excited about that. Very thankful for that. I don't know the official number between this year versus last year, but we got a lot of responses. So I want to say thank you to everybody that filled this out, took time to fill this out. Um, we appreciate it because this is why we do this podcast, why we have fun with this podcast. All right, I'm gonna jump around on the questions, um, but I think we should start here. It's just favorite network. We asked people this year what their favorite network to watch a Penn State football game on was. Um, there were four options: NBC, CBS, Fox, and BTN. Um, do you want to take guesses on this?
Could
Like
be NBC.
NBC was number one at
Yeah,
forty
I
two
mean,
percent.
yep.
Number two,
BTN.
nope. CBS was number two,
Okay, oh, that makes
which
sense.
is
Wow. So
interesting.
did Fox finish behind BTN?
No, no,
Okay.
no. BTN was last, and Fox was
Okay.
was third. Um, CBS is interesting to me because there's really only been two, three
Yeah.
Penn State
I
games
have,
on CBS since this whole and one of them was an away game. So it's interesting to see the affinity for it already start. And
or the dislike for like I think the
this is
whole
more dislike for
dislike for
Fox.
Fox and Noon. But I'm sorry, like that's where your money comes from. Like I get it, I understand, and but they are less enjoyable to watch. I mean, that's the question. Like, I'm sorry, Gus and Joel just aren't. You don't trust them. They feel hype masters. Whatever.
I think the product, while maybe more vanilla-y on CBS, is fine. Like I think that's why maybe I trust it better. Um, I don't know if CBS has done things to wow me in the same way they did that with the SEC yet with the Big Ten. I think we're still gonna have to develop that relationship as a fan. Um, but yeah, so none of this was terribly surprising. I think I was maybe 20% voted for Fox, which is feels one out of every five, which feels slightly high, but I don't know.
Yeah, for as many games as are there, it feels slightly low,
For
right? Like people know what they're getting there, and they don't like it as much as the other places that they get less of it at.
for as much bitching and moaning that goes on about Fox, I thought it was going to be even lower, and I thought
That's
maybe
fair.
BTN was going to be a little bit higher. I don't know. I think BTN, like, most of their broadcasts are actually pretty decent,
Oh yeah,
even if they're like a subset of Fox
yeah,
broadcast. But I
they're,
think
they're clean. They're just they're not super special because those aren't the games they're getting aren't super special.
right, right. Um, oh, I forgot to put this in here. We had there were people from Colorado, Nebraska, Massachusetts, Maine, Texas, everywhere that kind of answered. So thank you for that. Of the people that answered our survey, 71% of those people say they have at least one paid site subscription to either
Yeah.
The Athletic on 3, Lions 247. I think, and a couple people threw in Penn Live as a write-in option, which I thought was interesting. Um, I guess I wouldn't. I probably should include them because they are pretty much behind a paywall. Um, I wonder if that is a result of us as a society being forced into more subscription-based models, or people find value. Like, in at least on 3 at the Athletic and Lions 247, I find value in paying money for all of those because I get access or articles or things that I don't get anywhere else. Um, but that being said, those places do provide me much better access than I would think pretty much all of the other outlets. That's no knock. I just think if you're a diehard fan, that's the comprehensive coverage you're looking for
Yeah, I
as well.
mean, because the free stuff, I mean, I think why 71% of people are paying for something is the free stuff isn't as comprehensive, right? You're
Right.
just not, you're getting news conferences, you're getting games, you're getting some opinion stuff. Those other pay ones you're getting aside from the athletic. Audrey doesn't do as much recruiting stuff, but those, you got the recruiting stuff there. Like she'll go find a unique thing on an off week about a recruit, but she's not necessarily doing the recruiting stuff.
You're getting a
Um,
forum too. You get the
right.
the
Yep.
community sense of community there
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah. No, there's good reasons for people to do it.
Do you pay for any?
I pay for the athletic.
Okay.
Um, I resubscribed to Penn Live. We had that discussion
Yes.
a couple weeks ago about whether or not I'll keep it through football season or not. I forget what it goes to after my summer trial period's over. No, the Athletics the big thing. I mean, because Wogo's free for me, right? So I can get him in some context there. And I pay for the CDT. Anymore I have to pay for the CDT.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you get the
not
Do
that I
you
did
get the
before.
CDT delivered to the doorstep?
Comes twice a week. That's all they do anymore. Comes
Oh, really?
Wednesdays
I didn't
and
realize they really don't do
comes
this.
Wednesdays and Saturdays for Sunday.
Okay.
So as it is primarily a digital thing now.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Moving on to the podcast. This is when we start to get to the top countdowns, if you will. 79% of people that answered said they listened to a Penn State podcast, which in the context of us putting this out there isn't that surprising because we are a Penn State podcast, so some of our audience is tapped into that. But not everybody said us, which is good. But we'll get to that here in a second. I think I find a lot of value. I'm finding more and more value out of podcasts. And maybe that's just because I have more free time to listen to a podcast. I very much I prefer the pace of a podcast, and I prefer the ability to kind of like pause it when I need to, listen to it when I want to. It's just a little bit easier for me. So, all right, are you ready for the top 5?
Sure.
Okay.
How many were there overall? How many options did we give?
There were
there
quite
like
a bit.
8 or 9?
I had like 10 on there at least.
Okay. Top 5. Okay, go ahead.
Top 5. All right. A newcomer in the Penn State podcast space. It is Behind the Wall with Landon Tangwall. He's kind of just started his podcast. That came in at number 5. Again, this is completely just our own small little media empire here. So keep that in mind. Number 4, Lions 247, their podcast. I didn't know how to group all of these ones together, so I just called it State Media PSU. They came in at number 3. That's Brenneman. That is Hackenberg and former podcast guest Brandon Bell. They're kind of, they have, plus I think there's a couple player ones kind of loosely tied into that one as well. So that one's on there. And then number 2 was us.
Get out of here. Our own survey, we finished second. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. Yeah. Thanks for voting. That's nice.
So, and it was like, again, we got a lot of people to answer this. So there was not like just 2 people that said us. So I appreciate that. There were 2 people that said us later on. We'll get to that in a second. And number 1 was the Blue White Illustrated podcast. Okay.
Legacy media, basically.
Legacy media.
Basically in that form.
Okay. So, our top 5 most read. This was a big one last year. I think this list is pretty similar. Might be slightly different. I think one name dropped off of it. But top 5 most read outlets for Penn State media, Penn State news. Number 5 was Penn Live. Number 4, statecollege.com. Number 3, Onward State. Number 2, The Athletic. And number 1, On3/Blue White Illustrated. So, this is where 2 people said us. So, shout out to those 2 people that said us, that read us for Penn State news. Tell you what, we've got.
God bless you.
Yeah.
But you're getting different Penn State news from us. So there you go.
We try to think about it differently. All right. Will Audrey Snyder defend her crown?
I know we're going to find out in a minute. If I could do a drum roll, we should have looked one of those up and have a little whatever.
I can edit that in or something. Your favorite beat writer. Number 5, Johnny McGonigal from Penn Live.
Okay. Making a debut, basically, right? Was he last year?
Maybe last year. I have to look. I should have gone back and looked, but I think he did all right. Number 4, a longtime beat writer now, even though him and I are effectively the same age, Greg Pickle. I think Greg does a nice job with kind of the roundup stuff he does and kind of engaging with readers, particularly on the message boards. So I think that was good. All right, number 3, Audrey Snyder. So we will have a new champion.
We had some movement at the top.
Yeah. Number 2, speaking of Blue White Illustrated, was Ryan Snyder, who I think probably does one of the better jobs on the beat of covering the recruiting aspect. And then number 1, Sean Fitz. That was the number 1, which objectively, I think probably would be my answer too, or at least the beat writer that I find the absolute most value out of, because he will give you like the most inside sources stuff, like published inside sources.
Right, right.
That's not to say
Yep.
that any of the other beat writers don't have those. It's just like it's one of the few times you actually see it written. Um, so yeah, again on three, the Blue White Illustrated team kind of kicking
So
butt
they
there.
must be worth paying for.
Yeah.
See, clearly.
All right. Last question that we had that was new this year. I think this one was new, but I think we asked this at the end of the season as well. And I think we'll do this when we do the end of season survey. We'll do this again. What grade would you give the Penn State beat? So A through F. 58% of people said B. 28% of people said A, and 13% of people said C. So I think that's fair. I think Penn State fans are probably spoiled a little bit by the amount of people that cover their football team. I also think sometimes there are things that people miss on, or maybe aren't uncovered or aren't talked about or written about enough. That so I think a B. I would give a B plus if we had allowed B pluses. Maybe an A minus, B plus, A minus, somewhere in that range. Any thoughts there?
I gave them a B.
You give them a B?
I don't know if I'd have done a B plus if they were there to. Can't think of anything they missed on, right? It's just always the grumpy.
Yeah.
The majority, except for the pay ones, right? And because I don't get as much from the pay ones, personally, I mean, I just don't pay for them. I think in the general stuff, I know I'm getting the same routine every week because that's when they're getting fed stuff. Like nobody's really zigging when other people are zagging or give me something different in depth, which the pay stuff may give me. So that's probably why for my personal stuff, it'd probably be B instead of B plus, just because I'm not getting, oh yeah, I got to read this, so.
I think the main thing particularly over the course of doing this podcast, I think that I've paid attention to or started to realize is like, for the most part, anybody can cover the ins and outs of the season. Obviously, last year was like a little bit different when Yurcich got fired, right? I think that a lot of that is, like you said, like they're fed that. It's what you do in the off season, or it's what you can do differently. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like Poorman's when he does his numbers thing. I think that's one of the reasons, I like Johnny's stuff and Audrey's stuff when they do their feature stuff in the off season or even on the bye week. So to me, that's about maximizing that kind of time. I think would be the best way to put it. So that's why I said B plus, A minus, somewhere right, maybe a 90%. We'll give it a 90%. Okay, some of your feedback. And I think most of which aligns with kind of what you and I talk about pretty much every week on this podcast, but also right now. Like I think what a lot of high praise for BWI. BWI is an A. The rest are average at best. That's what that one person said. BWI is excellent. No one comes close. It's the only site you need. Fits in the team. Fitz and team is the best in the business, not just on the PSU beat, but any beat. Can't touch them anywhere. This person kind of agreed with us and said, I would give an A minus or B plus because I don't think anyone could really be perfect, but this beat is large and it has all the niches covered, from recruiting to long form to random zany details, and some of them aren't afraid to ask James Franklin tough questions. Having said that, as someone who usually listens to pressers live or the next day to kill time at work, some of them ask the dumbest questions or have questions and phrase it stupidly, though nobody's perfect. I think that was a
There you
fair
go.
criticism.
That's fair. Yeah.
This one person says, offer good coverage, but don't give enough in-depth coverage. Needs to be a little more meat on the bone to get some of the ideas across to a casual fan. A good example would be the NIL situation. I agree with that person. Like I don't know if the beat has done a good job of covering the NIL stuff, and I also don't know if Penn State has done a good enough job of letting those people into the NIL experience and maybe showcasing.
No, and I think it's different if you're with them every week. Like at some point, it's my question for the news conference. How does NIL work?
Yeah.
Like how as a student, right? And even with Erica, and I didn't pull the punch. I knew we were trying to be fair with her time. Like I'm curious. As after she said it, I'm like, okay, So as a kid, the pro league is now not a side job, it's whatever. Like, are these kids making like, I don't want numbers exactly, but are kids making five figures
Yeah, it
playing Penn
sounds.
State women's soccer?
Yeah,
Sound like they were, right?
yeah.
Like maybe not, so yeah. So I can
Not
see
every
that from a
single
beat
one, but
perspective, not carrying that.
yeah,
So yeah.
it didn't seem small. This person said need to ask tougher questions on a consistent basis and push back more on the head coach of Penn State athletics. Everything from what they say to access to digging up more stories. I think that's relatively fair. I think, again, kind of the beat challenges or balances the hand that feeds, and trying not to bite the hand that feeds sometimes. I think it is fair. And then this last person said, with Ben Jones retiring / going away, I think Darian should cover the Penn State men's hockey team. I will not be covering the Penn State men's hockey team.
There you go. Got to love somebody watching out for you, though.
So I appreciate
Maybe that was Ben that submitted that.
Maybe it was Ben. Maybe it was Ben.
Or your mom. Who knows?
Nah, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. No, I think this was good. I think this was a fair analysis of Penn State beat. Any other thoughts, Mr. Samsel?
No, I think you're right. Glad we did it. Glad it's good. I'm glad I got responses, and I think people's responses were thoughtful and accurate.
Yeah.
Especially us being the second podcast.
Yeah. I'm really, really proud of that one. And the two people that said they read us for Penn State news.
Exactly. God bless them.
Okay.